Today we are deleting the Phoenicians, the most powerful, secretive, and elusive mastermind civilization in human history. You won't find their names on massive marble statues like the Romans, and they rarely built borders on maps. Why? Because they were the world's first low-key superpower. They didn't want to conquer your land, they wanted to own your markets. In this video, we are vaporizing the original architects of the global economy. We are dismantling a society that ruled the world not with an army, but with a checkbook and the sea. We will watch as the very alphabet you are reading right now dissolves into meaningless scratches. We will witness the collapse of global trade, turning our modern money into worthless paper. We'll explore how your smartphone screens and windows turn back into opaque, dark sand. And finally, we will uncover the ultimate shadow they left behind, a secret, elite legacy of master builders that leads directly from the hidden shipyards of Lebanon to the mysterious global brotherhood of the Freemasons. If we delete the Phoenicians, the modern world doesn't just change, it loses its voice, its vision, and its structure. This is world erased. The first thing to vanish when we delete the Phoenicians is your ability to communicate. To understand this loss, we have to look at their birthplace, the narrow, rugged coast of modern-day Lebanon. In cities like Byblos, these masterminds realized that the old way of writing was a prison. Before them, writing was a weapon of the elite. If you were in Egypt or Mesopotamia, you had to memorize thousands of complex symbols and pictures just to record a single transaction. It took a lifetime to master, meaning knowledge was locked away in the hands of a few priests. But the Phoenicians were businessmen. They didn't have time for art. They needed efficiency. So they did something radical. They threw away the pictures and invented a 22-letter phonetic system. It was the world's first open-source code. It was portable, fast, and revolutionary because it was based on sound, not images. This is the ancestor of nearly every writing system in the Western world. The Greeks took it, the Romans refined it into Latin, and the Arabs shaped it into their script. The alphabet is gone. Literacy is suddenly reserved for the top 1% of the priesthood. Your text messages? Vanished. This video script? Unreadable. Without a simple system, modern science, law, and the internet cannot exist. You are no longer a citizen of a digital world. You are a peasant in a world where you can't even sign your own name. But a voice is useless if you are trapped in the dark. To rule the world, the Phoenicians didn't just need to speak, they needed to see through the chaos. And to do that, they turned the very earth beneath their feet into a window. The Phoenicians lived on a Lebanese coastline with a very specific type of silica-rich sand. While the rest of the ancient world was using sand to build mud huts, the Phoenicians were cooking it. They mastered transparent glass blowing, a secret they guarded with terrifying intensity. They were so protective of their techniques that for centuries, they were the only ones who could produce high-quality, clear glass. They traded these invisible vessels from the tin mines of Britain to the temples of Egypt, and no one could figure out how they did it. No transparent glass means no lenses. No lenses means no telescopes to see the stars, no microscopes to fight disease, and no cameras to film this video. Your modern world becomes a dark, blurry place. Your smartphones become useless blocks of plastic, and the massive glass skyscrapers of Dubai and New York become dark, suffocating concrete cages. Clarity itself has been erased. But the Phoenicians weren't just about utility. They understood that to dominate the globe, you don't just provide a service. You create a brand so exclusive that every king on earth would bankrupt his kingdom just to own a piece of it. The Phoenicians were the first to understand that you don't rule with a crown, you rule with a brand. They discovered that a tiny sea snail found on the shores of Tyre could produce a vibrant, light-fast dye. They called it orgewan, Tyrian purple. It was the most expensive substance on Earth. It took 12,000 snails to produce just 1 gram of pure dye. It was worth more than its weight in gold. They created the world's first luxury monopoly. Because of the Phoenicians, purple became the royal color, a status symbol that defined power for 3,000 years. The orgewan is gone, but with it goes the very concept of a universal currency. Phoenician coins were the US dollar of the ancient world, approved and accepted globally because everyone trusted their value and the credit of the Phoenician merchants. They were the first to rule the world from a purely financial perspective. If we delete their financial network, the global economy evaporates. We are back to bartering cows for grain, and the concept of international credit dies in its cradle. But they thought for a moment, wealth and branding mean nothing if you can't move your goods. To protect their monopoly, the Phoenicians had to master the one thing that terrified every other civilization: the deep, open ocean. The Phoenicians were the master carpenters of the universe. They had access to the legendary cedars of Lebanon, wood so strong and rot-resistant, it was the carbon fiber of the ancient world. But their real genius was the ship's hew, the specific way they cut and shaped these massive timbers. They invented the keel, the structural spine of the ship. Before them, boats were unstable rafts. The Phoenicians hewed a deep, heavy spine that allowed their ships to slice through waves instead of bouncing on top of them. They were the first to use the North Star for navigation, allowing them to sail 24/7 while the rest of the world was forced to anchor at night. They were so advanced that researchers have found traces of Phoenician presence in North America thousands of years before Columbus. They crossed the Atlantic while the rest of the world thought the Earth was flat, all in the name of finding new markets and resources. The ship's hew and the keel are gone. Global logistics collapses instantly. 90% of everything you own, your clothes, your tech, your food, arrived on a ship that wouldn't exist without Phoenician naval architecture. We are back to being isolated, terrified of the deep water, unable to cross the horizon. But to maintain a global monopoly, you don't just need scales, you need a fortress. And to protect their trade routes, the Phoenicians didn't just build warships, they built the Pentagon of the ancient world. Hidden in North Africa, far from their ancestral heart in Lebanon, sat their most terrifying masterpiece of military deception, the Kothon of Carthage. From the shoreline, it looked like any other busy merchant port, filled with the noise of trade. But this was a mask. Beyond the commercial docks, hidden behind a massive, windowless circular wall, lay a forbidden inner sanctum. This was a secret Navy factory, a high-security industrial complex carved directly from the earth and sea. Inside, 220 covered docks stood in total silence, housing a fleet that technically didn't exist. This was the core of the Phoenician deep state, a civilization operating in the shadows of the Mediterranean with top secrecy. No foreigner was permitted to cross the threshold. To even glimpse the inner workings of the Kothon was a death sentence. Spies were executed on the spot to ensure their naval blueprints remained a ghost story. They didn't want the world to see how they mass-produced their ships, how they mapped the stars, or how they moved the silent wealth that fueled their empire. But imagine the timeline shifts. The Kothon is vaporized before it can be finished. The secret navy never materializes. The Phoenician shield, the very thing that kept their monopoly impenetrable, is shattered. Without the Kothon, the mystery of their naval superiority doesn't just fade, it vanishes into the waves, leaving their global trade empire defenseless and exposed. The empires that followed the Phoenicians thought they had conquered them, but you cannot kill a ghost. You can only force it to change its name and hide its rituals. This brings us to the ultimate question. Where did the Phoenicians go? They didn't just disappear. Their blood and their knowledge were absorbed into the foundations of Western civilization. But their secrets, their architectural geometry, and their elite financial networks went underground. Today we talk about the Freemasons as a mysterious global brotherhood of builders who influence world events. But look at the history. The central legend of Freemasonry is the building of King Solomon's temple. But Solomon didn't have the architects. He had to call King Hiram of Tyre, the Phoenician king from Lebanon. The man who designed the most famous temple in history, Hiram Abiff, was a Phoenician master builder. The Phoenicians were a society of guilds, master stonemasons and shipbuilders who guarded their trade secrets with their lives. They operated above kings and borders, moving the world's wealth through invisible channels. Does that sound familiar? The secretive nature of the Phoenicians, their obsession with geometry and architecture, and their ability to rule the world through finance rather than land. This is the DNA of the modern Freemasons. They were the true Masons before the word even existed. From the secretive docks of the Kothon to the modern boardrooms of global power, the Phoenician ghost is still running the show. When we erase the Phoenicians, we don't just lose an ancient port or a seawall. We lose the source code of our entire civilization. We lose the alphabet we speak. We lose the glass we see through. We lose the ships that feed us. And we lose the very structure of the global economy. The purple people may have been low-key, but they were the pillars holding up the roof of the modern world. The next time you look at a dollar bill, or a computer screen, or a map of the stars, remember the masterminds from Lebanon who disappeared into the shadows but left their code in everything you touch. This is world erased. Which civilization should we delete next? Let us know in the comments.